In view of the upcoming elections to Gloucester City Council on Thursday the 6th of May, voters in Gloucester will no doubt be interested to see the extracts of the following Overview and Scrutiny Committee into Marketing Gloucester, which took place last year. Here councillors debate what happened at Marketing Gloucester, how £240,000 of your money was thrown into an insolvent company, how £400,000 worth of grant was spent on the Drick investment in Eastgate Shopping Centre, plus another £76,000 worth of overspend, and how both Liberal Democrat and Labour councillors asked questions with hindsight that they should have been asking before the event. Your money was thrown by Conservative, Liberal Democrat and Labour councillors into a company that had been loss-making for years, that the council and councillors were fully aware did not have proper financial controls required by law of any company. It even goes so far at the end where a Conservative councillor asks, "Have we put enough money in yet?" What an indictment. Councillors of all three parties, reckless with money belonging to Gloucester's council taxpayers. And of course, your council tax has gone up nearly 30% since the last elections. Vote Gloucester Independence. Vote Gloucester Independence on the 6th of May for a full investigation into what happened.
Good evening, welcome to this special meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee to look at Marketing Gloucester Limited. I'm just going to go through the procedural preliminaries at the start. No? Okay. Before we get to public question time, I'm just going to talk about how the meeting will run. Can I make everyone aware that the meeting may and indeed is being filmed? I would just remind members that I do expect this meeting to be conducted in our usual collegiate manner, with a view to fact-finding and setting a course to prevent a reoccurrence of what we're examining tonight.
The general difficult financial position of the company was communicated to council officers on many occasions, although I accept that the figure for the cash flow wasn't, because it wasn't known until after the sort of 2019 Tall Ships Festival. But I think in reality, and those involved in finances will know this, if the company loses money year after year, there will come a point when the money runs out. And clearly the council was aware of those losses because it provided the going concern statement that went with the annual accounts submitted to Companies House year on year. There was a recommendation in one of those reports that the council assist Marketing Gloucester in strengthening its financial controls. The suggestion has been made in the past that the council didn't know about the UK Digital Retail Innovation Centre project until it was open, I think was the phrase that was used. Simply isn't true.
I've come to the point that Councillor James has just mentioned about his knowledge of the UK Digital Resource Innovation Centre being created and established, and also we know that he was photographed with the City MP and others at the official opening of the facility in the Eastgate Shopping Centre. What I want to know is, because you previously said you had no idea that the company was being set up as a subsidiary of Marketing Gloucester Limited, and you were chair of Marketing Gloucester Limited, and you didn't seem to understand it was set up as a subsidiary, or that Jason Smith and the bookkeeper appointed themselves to the board. Now, how on earth did that happen under your chairmanship? Surely you should have known what's going on and stopped it.
Because I think Councillor Hilton has clearly prejudged the outcome of this inquiry, because he's already said on social media that it was all my fault. And there were times, and I've said this before, there were times when the board did not want to go ahead and organise events that it had no money to do, but they were ordered by officers to do so. And in the situation with a TEPL company is you have to take the orders from the shareholder, because effectively it has to be like a department of the council, and that is the crucial difference.
Councillor Hilton, go ahead.
In 2014 there was whistleblowing allegations about Marketing Gloucester Limited. It's impossible now for members of this committee to get sight of a copy of the report that was done into the investigations that went ahead. Do you have a copy in your possession? Would you know of any other board directors of the company that have a copy of that report in their possession? And if not, why has this council lost that copy during your time as leader of the council?
Well, I think the leader of the council has many responsibilities, but organising the filing system isn't one of them. I don't have a copy. I was asked whether that question under freedom of information. I think it would have been inappropriate for me to keep a copy for so long for an organisation that I'm no longer involved with. And as if the head of policy and resources was here tonight, he'd be able to confirm that all of my old files and emails, I think pre about 2017, were lost when IT switched over my laptop, so I had nothing prior to that.
If I could ask Jenny a question. It goes back, and it's one of the issues that's got me most worried about, if I'm honest. Starting with the Grant Thornton report, it refers to the setting up the DRIC, which they say they have great concerns about. Their recommendation is we set up a full and comprehensive review. The main objective of gaining comfort over the use of the grant money. So the question is, do we have that comfort yet? That's question number one. Question number two, it refers to a report in Punchline, I think yesterday. They seem to have seen the report that Marketing Gloucester got ahead of the decision we made to put it into insolvency. They say, the report adds, we have no accounting records, bank accounts, etc. in relation to the UK DRIC. As such, we have no idea what may be hidden under the rug in relation to this entity. They then refer to numerous contracts and financial obligations appear to have been created for this company, either the name of the DRIC or Marketing Gloucester. The question being then, how on earth do we get ourselves into a situation where we set up a company with £400,000 of public money and it's got no records? Is that even legal? That's question number two.
What there was not was any board decisions around any separate subsidiary companies being set up, and you would envisage that if there was, there would be board minutes obviously documenting why there'd be a decision to particularly appoint the chief exec of MGL and the bookkeeper as those directors. So it's certainly true to say we don't have any records around the formation of the subsidiary or the understanding of what the rationale was necessarily behind that particular choice. And therefore we also don't have any of the records for the company, if they even exist, in terms of understanding the full contractual liabilities that the UK DRIC. So hence the £400,000 was spent, however there was a £76,000 overspent on that, which was not something that the board was aware of until the accounts and the VAT process commenced a bit later in the year by the time I was appointed as the chair. And of course that £76,000 became a debt to MGL. It will have to undertake almost a separate process to establish whether those directors have conducted themselves as they should as part of the process of setting up a company, running a company and doing everything they're supposed to do. So we are still at very early days, and that is mainly to do with the fact that the information available to me as chair and to the board after I was appointed it was very difficult to obtain.
I'm a layperson in this perspective, so I don't really get it, but just in terms of the future, because again I'm a layperson, so I don't know, you may not be able to answer this.
I want to look at financial reporting at MGL. Firstly, when the reductions were made in council expenditure, I would have expected any half-competent board to have looked at the effect of that and to revise and draw up a new business plan. As I understand it, the business plan was never modified at Marketing Gloucester Limited as a result of reductions from the council. So I'm failing to understand why to that extent. And secondly, if I'm incorrect, you will no doubt correct me. As I understand it, there were no regular financial reports in terms of income and expenditure statements, cash flow statements being considered and going to the board. Now that is such a basic requirement of any board, and if that was not taking place, then sorry Paul, but you do have to take some blame for that. You were the chair of the company, you were the leader of the board, and basic financial reporting should have been going on, and you would have then been aware as a board, you would have been aware much earlier as to what the actual financial position was. While we're on the reduction in council spending, because you did make a very serious allegation, if after you say there is evidence that officers against the will of the company ordered you to carry out certain actions irrespective of having the ability to deliver those, can that please be provided to members of this Overview and Scrutiny Committee?
Yeah, I think in terms of what went wrong, you have had the paper circulated which gave some 3 key points in a sense of the areas and which really had an impact bringing us to where we are today. But again, just to say that it's subject to further review. But I think in terms of some of the commentary around grant fund reduction, I mean, absolutely, there's no way that we, as a council, when we withdraw funds from any organisation, does it not have an impact? Absolutely. And, we've been through a really difficult 10-year period in terms of having to reduce funding from various parties, whether that's the voluntary sector, AME, Aspire, and we've had high expectations of all of our partners to be able to achieve savings. So I do agree that that will have caused an issue, but I guess from my point of view in terms of entering a company, and Paul said there wasn't a revised business plan, there wasn't a document that I could refer to as the new chair that talked about how those savings were going to be achieved. And as you'll have seen from the various pieces of information that have entered into the public domain in various formats, that you certainly wouldn't expect to see a company increasing costs, things like salaries and sundries and accountants' fees, and you'd be looking for savings in areas where you could. So there's certainly a lot of investigation required, I think, and more dialogue about that in the future. But I think it is true, as this statement says, to say that the company did fail in many ways to deal with that core reduction in funding. The timeline that you've sent, I think the difficulty was that information was not forthcoming.
David, just a full audit report. Did you read the full audit report?
No, if I said at a previous cabinet, it was a scrutiny or a full council, nobody ever made me aware of that.
As chair of the company, don't you think you should have been?
Well, I can only read something if I know it exists. And it was never brought to my attention.
I'm surprised by that. Okay. Second question, as regards the question from the member of the public, I think what she was referring to at the call-in meeting, I asked a question about the CEO signing off his own expenses, from what I can recall. I think your answer was you didn't get involved in the day-to-day financial dealings. But from the question I've just heard, it sounds like you were actually an authorised cheque signatory. So is it true that you would have been signing those off?
Well, before I answer, I think Councillor Wilson ought to reflect on whether he should take part in this, whether he's independent-minded as well, because he has previously said that he's a personal friend of the person making the allegation. So I really think you should declare that interest.
Can I clarify?
Yes.
Yes, I said I knew her personally.
And in terms of the limited company, and I've made this point before, my understanding, and I think some people can correct me if I'm not accurate in this, but the limited company subsidiary for the UK Drake effectively was a dormant company. It had no assets and no liabilities. So although it was set up probably with the intention that it wouldn't become an active company, I don't believe that it was.
Jenny, on that.
I can confirm there is an active UK Drake subsidiary company that does have assets and liabilities and a bank account and a current status with Companies House.
Thank you.
I didn't think it was a very good relationship.
When I think it's fair to say that relationships between Marketing Gloucester and the council had pretty much broken down, And council officers certainly expressed to me at the time it was very difficult to be able to have a conversation because of the conflict of interest in having the chair of Marketing Gloucester as also at one time the cabinet member and the leader.
As I was a substitute on this committee, I actually thought I'd better get some background information. And I went onto the Company's House website for an hour and I could see the problems immediately. And I want to know who signed off the company accounts, the Company House, because every single auditor mentions that there's significant doubt about it having a going concern, significant, and basically saying this because Gloucester City Council is backing this. And that goes on from 2014, 2015, 2016, and then in March 2017, the auditor says significant doubt about going concern, but the council loan, there is no paperwork trail for backup from Gloucester City Council. I'm not good at seeking balance sheets, but I read every single auditor comment. And the auditors were not happy all the way through from 2014 through to the present day, basically.
It wasn't until December, with the dismissal of the chief exec and the bookkeeper, did obviously information become available to us that had otherwise been withheld. That the information that the board was receiving and that I was receiving as chair was not factually correct.
Did you expect to be taking over a company that the current leader of the council described as probably one of the worst run companies he's ever seen?
That you certainly wouldn't expect to see a company increasing costs, things like salaries and sundries and accountants' fees, and you'd be looking for savings in areas where you could. So there's certainly a lot of investigation required, I think, and more dialogue about that.
And we made, and I made, the council made, Councillor Lisa Noakes made, many attempts to get Marketing Gloucester to focus on producing that annual business plan. We engaged with them about what are you going to do to reduce your cost, to increase your income, to do things differently in order to address that, and we didn't get a constructive and positive response from Marketing Gloucester, and we checked with Cabinet that they wanted to continue with that aspiration around savings, and they told us that they did. So we were always aware that that was a challenge. I think, as Anna said in her evidence, we became aware that things like creditors couldn't be paid, and HMRC, etc., couldn't be paid in September, October of this year, of 2019.
And I remember asking the question, are we sure this is going to be enough?
It's not just for this council to be happy with the structure of the DMO going forward. It's going to be vitally important that that's got the wider confidence of the business community and other partner organisations. So I'm seeking an assurance that we will be taking on board the views of other organisations, because frankly, the confidence, I think, of the business community in Marketing Gloucester, and to a certain extent this council, has been dented by what's happened. So